And today we are going to be doing part two of our Day in the Life episode. So if you didn't listen to last week's episode, no problem. We'll give you a quick recap. We talked about a different way that you could go about goal setting is instead of like writing down your goals and look at, what am I going to do this year? How am I going to make it specific? Blah, blah, blah. What does a day look like for you 5 years from now? And that can be full of lots of big intention, that can be full of reflection. I'm thinking back to this thing that I did, a few weeks ago. I'm looking ahead to my, next quarterly trip, etc. And so we really encourage taking a moment to look at and to think about what does your life look like 5 years from now? You could do it 10 years from now, you can do it whatever. Actually, I still think we would encourage 5 years specifically, but that activity is something that Angela recommends a lot for her coaching clients. And it really brought up this thing that I recommend for some of my coaching clients, which is to look at your life right now and try to find what is the small tweak that you can make that can make a difference. This idea really came to light for me and really kind of been was fleshed out. I was working with a dietitian and she talked about what are the little swaps that you can make in your life and in the food that you eat that will make a difference. So, you eat a lot of bread, you love bread. Is there a slightly healthier bread that you could eat? You don't have to cut bread out entirely, but what's a swap you could make? Maybe you're not eating white bread, but you're going to have whole grain bread because that's going to have a little bit more fiber for you and be a little bit less processed. Can you make that swap? Instead of eating regular pasta, could you do chickpea pasta? That's going to add more vegetables to your diet. It's going to have a little bit less calories, different things like that. What are the easy swaps that you can still be going about what it is you're doing without having to make a big dramatic change? I'm going to cut out all dairy. I'm going to cut out all these things.
Can I add one thing onto that before you jump?
Yeah.
Because especially, this is my big deal for bread because I love bread. And I have dramatically cut carbs in my life because I was eating way too much bread and, and drinking bread in the form of beer. But one of the things that I also recommend to, especially when I was doing a lot more health coaching, is that if you are going to eat something like that, like bread that maybe that's on your goal to eat less of, enjoy it. Like, don't eat it and then feel guilty about it. Like, actually sit and go, "Ooh, I love this bread. Oh my goodness." And like, take a bite, savor it, really enjoy the bread, and make a decision that you're not just going to mindlessly eat this thing. If there's something that you really, ugh, I hate that I'm cutting this out. I do this weird thing, like especially if I'm at a cool hamburger restaurant and I still love hamburgers. Don't care what weight loss journey, I still love them, and I will order it. If I don't order it on a lettuce wrap, if I order it, if they have like Kaiser bun or they have like a really yummy bun, I will pull the meat off, all the stuff, and set the bun aside. I will eat the meat first, and then if I'm still hungry, I will like actually sit and just eat the bun. And I'm telling you, some of the buns that I've had since then, I'll be like, oh, this Kaiser bun is really, really tasty. And so I will actually enjoy it. Whereas when I was just mindlessly eating a peanut butter jelly sandwich because it was fast or whatever, then, and even peanut butter and jelly sandwich, I got a bread that is like got some protein but also has some flavor because some types of breads don't have flavor. And so anyway, enjoy it if it is something that you want to. Sorry, totally not where you were going, but I think it's important.
I like it. So, for today's exercise, we wanted to look through and give some ideas and recommendations that if you're scanning through your life, what are some little swaps that you can make to maybe live a more freaking awesome life? And the idea of this is for us to prompt your brainstorm juices, get you moving in the right direction. It is not actually us telling you what works for you. This is just us trying to give ideas and go through a day and look at how you might make some small tweaks. If the tweak doesn't work for you or the tweak is not needed for you, then say, "Ah, I'm so glad somebody else could use that," and let it pass on by you. So, hear this for what it is. It's ideas and it's to get you thinking about things in a different way of how can I add in little bits into my day, my everyday routine that doesn't have to be big, dramatic, grand sweeps of changes. So here we are. We're going to think through the top of our day. One of the things that I personally, this is my little tweak that I'm going to be making. Um, I this actually may not be exactly the right kind of tweak. I'd like to stop snoozing because my long term goal is to get up earlier. And I think that an on the way step is to stop snoozing. So instead of setting my alarm for 6 o'clock and snoozing 3 times to get up at 6:30, I'm actually going to set my alarm for 6:30 with the intention of getting up at 6:30. That when my alarm clock goes off, I get up out of bed. This to me feels like a small tweak. The aim is still to get out of bed at 6:30, but instead of snoozing, instead of like whatever, I'll just let it go on, there's a different way of going about it. So, because my long-term goal is to get up earlier, eventually as I get used to this, I can then move the alarm clock back and keep going.
Here's another way to tweak that is if your alarm clock go. Oh, I know you and I both love to read, and I
Mhm.
don't. I mean, sometimes I can like the alarm goes off and let's go, let's get up. I don't like that, so I actually set my alarm early so that I can read for 15-20 minutes. I just like to. That's how I like to let my body kind of wake up. And so if you could do the 6:30 and then jump up, but you shared on last week's episode that you feel like you're just always like jumping and running, you could say at 6 o'clock, oh, I'm going to roll over and I'm going to read my book now, which feels more of almost a reward for waking up. And for
Mhm.
me, it is a way that I can just like take my time in that morning. Because I will tell you, like, yes, I just recently, back in book writing mode, I've recently started setting my alarm at 5. And the reason I set it at 5 is so I can lay in bed for 15-20 minutes, read, go have my morning caffeine drink, read for 10 more minutes, and then get up at 5:30 and go start writing. So that is another way that I kind of like give myself a little treat at the beginning of the day.
I like it. And that's a good swap that you can do on your way to goals. And if you feel like you're waking up and the first thing you do is you pick up your phone to scroll social media or to look at the news, that would also be something I would encourage a little swap on. I don't know that I would recommend consuming that kind of content
Correct.
first thing in the morning.
Agreed.
Is there a little swap that you can make? Get you an e-reader on your phone. You can still look at your phone. You don't even have to go somewhere else. Is
Yep.
there a game you can play on your phone that's just kind of pleasant, little treat? Uh, what, Angela? Do you have thoughts of another easy swap?
One of my 5-year goals, which is it's not a goal at all. It's actually a way I want to be in the world, is I want my house to be maintained. That's going to be an ongoing, endeavor. I get that, but there's right now several projects that are kind of undone, and so I want those projects done. And maybe when I start a project, I finish it. And so a few years ago, I was whining. There's no other word for it. I was whining to my therapist. Barry won't help me with the house maintenance stuff. Me, 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 me. And she finally, I think I've told this story before because she doesn't get frustrated with me very often. It's one of the few times that I can remember. And she was like, what can you do? Okay. And she probably didn't at all. I should probably just ask it in a very sweet, kind way, but my little brain heard it. Anyway, and I was like, oh, I can walk through my house and anything I don't love, I can take it off the walls and I can pass it on. And we actually covered this in our minimalism episode, back episode 40, 45, something like that. But I think when it comes to home maintenance, one of the strategies that has worked really well for me is to actually walk around my house and make a list. What are the things? So, if I want my house maintained, what are the things that are not maintained right now or kind of outstanding projects? Because then I can write it down and I can prioritize it based on time or on investment or that sort of thing. What's funny is that I have a couple of renovation projects and I'm like, oh, I should probably do the maintenance before I do the renovation, but the renovation is more fun. So Anyway, that would be an example of the tweak I could make. And then figuring out, can I do something every month toward one of those projects, wrapping up one of those projects?
Yeah, I like that. I had another idea. Really thinking about what makes life freaking awesome and what are the things that we say, these are great ways to live freaking awesome. There's actually a foundation below, there's a Maslow's hierarchy of needs that a lot of the things that we talk about living freaking awesome, I think are actually higher up on the needs list. They are a little bit more relationship based, self actualization, different things like that. And because of that, sometimes I don't give enough energy to the base and to sleeping right and eating right and doing things like that. And so this is less like here's the swap and more of just the small intentionality of like eat enough meals a day. Like don't skip meals. Stop doing that. And find what are the ways that I can incorporate, even if great, I don't want to skip breakfast. I'm going to have a protein bar. Maybe a protein bar is not the full breakfast I want it to be, but if I'm not eating breakfast at all right now, eating like one bar is going to be better than that. Eating enough calories to start your day. Figure out which meal, because I was reading something and I probably shouldn't share since I don't remember all of the exact things, but different people have different optimal meals for their most calories. And so a lot of the like research, breakfast is the most important meal of the day and all these things. You should have so many calories at breakfast. Some people, yes, some people, their body works that way to start the day off heavy loaded with a big breakfast. And then you have a little bit smaller lunch and a pretty small dinner. That doesn't work for everybody, but balance your caloric intake over the day. Don't just necessarily shove it all in at one meal. Think about how are you doing small things throughout the day at minimum. So that's one of my like this is how you be freaking awesome is you feed yourself. Feels
I
kind
mean,
of
that's real
silly,
life
but
because I definitely have times where when I've been on the run and I've done my, a breakfast shake and then I've done bars. And if I don't have like at least a salad, 300 or 400 calories at lunchtime, and I know there you can have a lot more, whatever.
you need
But
some
if,
more tangible calories than just
yes,
meal
I by
replacement options.
sometimes, and there's days where I'm just sitting answering email all day and I don't have to have a bigger lunch, but there are times when and on those days I'm like, get yourself out walking. Take a break and do a lap around the block. But that is one small tweak that I've done is like when I'm task switching, I will try to I try to eat every 3 hours, and on that 3 hour increment, a little something, either protein bar or 100 calories of something. On that increment, I try to do a whole water bottle in that 3 hour increment, and I try to loop the block if I can, because for me, looping the block is like a 10-minute deal. Not everybody can do that, but even in my like on-site client days, I will try to a couple of times a day loop the block for 10 minutes, and it really makes a difference. But on those days when I've been going, and I've just eaten on the run and not gotten enough calories at lunchtime, I get to about 4 o'clock and I'm exhausted. And I'm like, oh, I think I need more caffeine, which is not good because I will not sleep if I have caffeine after 4 o'clock. And then I figure out, no, 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 you're just hungry. Like you literally, there's no gas in the tank.
I frequently this is happening to me more and more often. It'll actually for me it hits like 11:30 noon and I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to have an early caffeine break. Oh, what's happening to me?" And I'm like, "Nothing is happening to you. You didn't eat enough breakfast and your tank is empty.
Yep.
Eat food, see how your body converts that food into fuel, and then tell me if you're still tired and want caffeine." Like
Right.
your body needs fuel in the tank to move and go about these
Right.
things, and it is really hard to go about your big life intentions when you're not taking care of basic needs.
Yep.
So if whatever your basic need is that you're neglecting is your swap that you need, go do it. Stop right now. Don't listen to the rest of the episode. You don't need anything else, and like make those swaps. I think that's also something, too many swaps at once can be overwhelming.
Hmm.
Take one of these, add it in, take another one, add it in. It doesn't have to be all at one time.
You also, we talked about getting up early, and can I just talk about going to bed on time or going to bed at reasonable time?
Yes.
Because in addition to needing enough calories, needing enough exercise, sleep is so important. I was talking with a friend recently, and she said that when she was growing up, their mom was a sleep researcher. And so if they had a bad day at school, maybe you should take a nap, honey. If somebody bullied you at school, you should take a nap. Like anything that happened in her life, which is cool because it's better than some of us who like, oh, let's have a cookie. You feel bad? Let's have a cookie. You don't feel good? Have a nap. Their mom constantly told them, have a nap, have a nap, have a nap. Go to bed early. Go to bed early. And it wasn't a punishment. It was oh, let's take care of you. It was a very nurturing kind of feeling. And so they were explaining like it's not unusual for them after a really rough week to like sleep 12 or 15 hours one of the weekend nights. And I know with kids that's hard, but there are times where it's like, can you move that bedtime up 15 minutes? Can you move it 20 minutes? And I will tell you,
And
getting
there
up at 5:30, your bedtime will move up.
Well, and I think that there are other, like, there's good sleep hygiene things that you can do for yourself to make it easier. More screen time right before bed, as fun and, you know, whatever, hits that sort of bad dopamine part of your brain. It's not bad dopamine, whatever. You're like, oh, it's just one more thing, one more episode. It's not as good for your sleep hygiene. It's a little bit harder. Um, is there a way you can turn the lights down in your house at night? You don't need to keep the lights on, actually. Maybe it's just a lamp. So you're starting to embrace that, this, the
Mhm.
sun and the light turning down. Is it an eye mask? Because that's something that I have implemented, actually, because we have windows that aren't always covered, and so if it's too bright, have trouble falling asleep. And so it was more expensive to get blackout curtains for all of my windows than it was to get a $10 eye mask. So we did that, and it worked out great.
And you actually got me going on an eye mask because a trip we took last year, and then I've recently gotten your dad on an eye mask, and we're both sleeping much, much better,
Oh my
especially when
gosh.
we were traveling in Europe.
Yeah,
So,
eye
and
mask.
off
And
on
then
our
it
sleep schedule.
also, it there's something about now having the eye mask that it's like
It's time to go to bed.
it's time to go to
It's
bed.
Pavlov. It's Pavlov's
Yes.
dog.
It
Conditioned
signals
response.
brain time,
Yes.
go to bed. Another swap that I want to mention or just tweak is, what do you do in break times and how are you uh, rewarding yourself? I actually think this goes back to your health tip that you gave earlier, Angela, where you said if you're going to eat the bread, don't feel guilty about it. I think one of the swaps is that when we do the thing that we maybe didn't want to do, or we feel like, oh man, I didn't do anything tonight, I just binge watched a bunch of TV, stop doing it mindlessly. Can you do a swap where I'm going to do it on purpose? I actually remember I had a night where Peter had fallen and I got really worked up and everything just felt like everything was falling apart. And I was like, I really need some comfort right now. And I don't, like, what am I supposed to do? I think I actually called you and asked permission. Like, can I use some coping skills? Because, like, I know I shouldn't necessarily just eat my feelings in a bowl of ice cream. I would like to, on purpose, eat a bowl of ice cream and go watch The Office right now because I just need something to feel cozy and feel good for myself in the midst of all of this that feels not good for me. And it was like, do it on purpose and enjoy it. And so I sat there and I just like really enjoyed the ice cream and The Office, because that is different to enjoy and allow yourself. And it's different that, like, you might do it anyway, but if you feel bad about it, like, it was not.
That's the key because we part of our kind of, especially if we're home for the evening, which has not been a lot since I've been home from Europe, quite frankly. It's been a little bit intense, but when we're home, right after dinner and have the whole night ahead of us, then we will like choose a sleepy show. Like and we on purpose veg out and I play Tetris and we have a show going in the background. We have And I do not feel bad. I need my
Mm-hmm.
brain to shut off. And the way I can get it to shut off, which will actually help my sleep hygiene, is for me to actually just sit and watch mindless television. And there's nothing wrong with it. What's
Mm-hmm.
wrong with it is when we aren't intentional about it, and we don't aren't realizing why we're doing it. So we're just doing it mindlessly. And then worse, we beat ourselves up, which is then going to give us more cortisol, which is we're trying to get rid of the stress. And so figure out your unwind routine. And if it is watch a show, watch a show.
And this could be your Saturday afternoon. It doesn't have to be like right before
That's correct.
bed. It
That's
could
correct.
be I've had a lot going on this week and I'm going to on purpose watch this whole season of this TV show because my body needs to sit still for a moment and kind of turn off for a while. Do it on
And
purpose, and
on
that's
purpose.
great. That's the
And
swap, is do it on purpose.
yes, and then at the end of it be like, "Ah, yay." And I think what people find is that if sometimes after I've done that for a couple of hours, I'll be like, okay, I just want to go empty the dishwasher. I'm not one. I have unlearned the. I don't know if I ever had learned this, but I have definitely gotten better at resting, which I think we're going to have in an upcoming podcast episode. So we'll save that for another day.
Anything else, Angela? Any other ideas that we'd like to just prompt for people to think about?
I would say that there are people that are going to be like, oh, well, easy to travel, you know, for whatever reason. There are lots and lots of different situations that people have. And so travel may not be your thing. Totally fine. If it is your thing, and like find a way, you most of us have things in our surroundings. If someone came to visit your community, that you would take and show them. So you maybe if you can't do a big trip, can you treat yourself like a tourist in your hometown? Can you um, plan to go and volunteer? One of the things we did when we were younger is we used the opportunity to like hang out with friends as a way to be able to afford travel. And so we might road trip. And if there's a friend that lives a couple hours away, hey, would you be willing to let me sleep on your couch for a couple weekends or a couple nights? And sometimes people know, but it could be a way to build relationship as well as be able to get that, if travel was on your 5-year list, like find the ways you can. There's going to be, your brain's going to
Mm-hmm.
offer you all kinds of excuses on why you can't, but find the ways you can do it. Maybe you have a friend that says they're going on a business trip. And one time, one of my girlfriends, I was like, hey, I'm going on this trip. All you would have to do is pay for just a little bit of travel, and my hotel's already covered, and we'll eat a little bit. And they were able to tag along on my business trip, right? And so make friends with a speaker. They're traveling alone a lot. Anyway, so figure out ways that you can do it. And it could be exploring your area and going hiking or whatever it is, but don't let it hold you back.
I feel like that reminds me of another little, I don't know, brain hack, brain trick of I want to be a person who travels, or I want to be a person who fill in the blank. I don't know how to get there. Sometimes when you're going about your daily task, you say, well, what would a person who travels do in this situation? And I'm just going to go do that thing. Um, Angela, I think you may have shared, I want to say it was recently on the podcast, but if it's not, oh well. You were like, what would a person who has their crap together do right now? I'm going to do that thing. And after a couple of times of doing that thing, you're like, okay, I'm a person who has their crap together. Look at all the evidence of all the things that I've done because I keep just pretending to be a person who has her crap together. I just do the things that would do. You can use that trick as well. I want to be a great mom. What would a great mom do in this situation? I'm going to go do that thing. I want to be a better friend. What would a better friend do in this situation? That's a great way to swap and to just think about how can I be a little bit more on purpose with the things that I'm doing. And I really think that's the point of this whole episode. Maybe we should rename it. It's not a day in a life and what are the little swaps, but it's really about being on purpose with some of these decisions. You don't have to make big, grand, sweeping gestures. I listen to the Lazy Genius podcast, and she talks about sometimes we get big black trash bag energy where you just want to like go through your life and dump everything in the trash bag and throw it out, and that's actually not that helpful long term for us. Long term, the little things that we do can make a much bigger difference in our life. So I encourage you guys, make a little swap this week. Tell us what it is, tell us how it goes, and we'd love to hear from you. You guys can actually send in your recording to let us know how it goes. We'll put that link in the show notes. And yeah, I hope that you guys are able to take something from here to just live a little bit more on purpose, because that's really what it takes to be freaking awesome in this life. Until next time, we hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and you guys go and be free.